Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode.
My main mistakes I think I see other people doing, I mean, I don't know where to honestly begin, but shooting the films too fast with too little care. You know, can you shoot a film in 6 days and it be good? No, you just can't.
Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker Podcast. This week, I'm joined by filmmaker Charlie Steeds. Hi, Charlie. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
You're most welcome. So last week, I had a conversation with a filmmaker called Rob Hollocks about why most filmmakers quit after their first film. Mm-hmm. Cut to me this week doing a bit of research on you. And there's like 20 movies on your IMDb. I mean, for people who are listening, you don't look, what are you, mid-20s?
I'm 32.
32, all right. So you've hidden the slightly older age well, but that's pretty impressive, 20 movies. So I guess this episode's got to be about having the stamina and keeping up those productions, because I've looked at the trailers, you're not churning out rubbish. These all look like proper movies. Mm-hmm. Before we get to that first, tell me where the journey started. Did you study film? What kind of led you into your first film?
Yeah, so basically, like probably many filmmakers, just got hooked when I was young on watching movies. Like it just did something for me. And then when I was probably in primary school, I came across the films of Tim Burton, another one that I think a lot of filmmakers refer to because the style is so vivid. But for the first time, I could see what a director is doing to an extent, like the voice, the continual voice through all the films. And that made me realize I want to be a director. And so in a way, to get me to where I am now, that's been really lucky in that I was so young and I just knew I wanted to be a director. And then when I was a bit older, maybe about 14, I discovered Tarantino movies. There was other directors that were like really making an impression on me, David Lynch, the Coen brothers. But when I watched Tarantino and Kill Bill and Reservoir Dogs and Jackie Brown, I was like, I have to right now get my camcorder and get my friends together and start now, because I want to train for this to be my job. You know, I was just adamant from that age that I want this to be my job. And so so I ended up making 20 short films, which I don't think you can see anywhere. You know, they were online, but I took them down when I went into features. But you know, 20 short films. I went to film school, did my degree, and then came out of film school. Again, you know, film school didn't help me at all in terms of like knowing what to do or where to go. I'd made 20 short films, so now I was gonna just make a longer short film, and that would be called a feature film, and maybe that would sell. And so there was no self-awareness whatsoever. There was no realistic perception of an industry, or could this be done as a career. I kind of just had this determination stumbling through, and it's basically, for better or worse, got me to where I am now, which, you know, is I've coming up by the end of this year, it will be 10 years I've been making horror films for a full-time living, no other job or income. So, you know, I'm grateful for that. You know, it's like I'm doing what it's, in a way, I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. But yeah,
living the dream. Okay, so then let's dig into that, because people are going to want to know how you've done it. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming, did you finance your first film yourself, or did you immediately get funding? How did you kick it off?
Yes, the first film I self-financed. and then the second film I self-financed, and I did self-finance the third film as well, but I had the financing for the next two films sort of set in stone. So yeah, I mean, I'll try and explain basically how it happened, but people ask me a lot, how are you getting the funding? How did you get your films funded? Well, the first thing you need to do to get anything funded is show people that if they were to fund you, you can do what like uh you wouldn't fund someone to build you a house if you'd never built a house. You can't just say you think you can build, you have to show that you can do it. And with a feature, I mean, it does obviously work with short films. I've got friends who's made short films and that has got them onto features. Sometimes that kind of a little short film can catapult you actually, because a feature is very it's just all there. It's it's a long showpiece. You've got a whole hour and a half to show all your weaknesses as well as your strengths. So I think maybe like a 2 minute short, maybe if I'd done that with the money, it might have catapulted me beyond the area of the industry I'm in, which is essentially when I started, like, the DVDs that go straight to Tesco and straight to Sainsbury's. I've never had to do quite like, mockbusters and that type of thing, but it's that level of the industry, you know. It's not quite the bottom of the barrel, but I kind of call it like, near the bottom of the barrel. Which is fine, because luckily for me, I like B movies, and that is my.
You're in the barrel. That's the main thing.
I mean,
We're in the
yeah,
barrel.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, so my own, I worked a regular day job. I saved up all the money I could, and then I put everything I had into the movie. This is when I was about 21. I was out of film school and I just put everything into the movie, made these tiny little low budget movies. And I mean, I say to people, the thing is, if I wanted to make those movies now, like my first horror film is called Escape from Cannibal Farm. If I wanted to make that film now the way I made it then, I wouldn't be able to afford to. So it's like, even though it was made so dirt cheap, everything I was getting was free, and just because you've got, we shot for 22 days, actors who all volunteered to come and do it. I wasn't getting paid myself. I was using my money to make the movie. So I think in a situation like that, at the time anyway, it was fair enough that actors could see there was no money really. It was a work of passion, and so we were all in the same boat. We all went and did it, and we all got free locations. I mean, yeah, today if I tried to book in a 22-day shoot with that amount of actors and all of the locations I had, and you usually pay in a location, I don't know, anything between 250 to 500, maybe even 1,000 a day, I wouldn't be able to afford it. So I got a lot of free stuff. And I think most filmmakers probably have one or two movies in them where they can pull in all those favors. Then the favors are gone, and you're on your own, and then stuff starts to really cost money. But that's basically how I got started, was just by I made the film, and then people could see, oh, he's made this. And a sales company, I mean, I didn't even know what a sales company was at the time, but a sales agent in California, they wrote to me here in London, and they said they wanted to sell my movie. And I basically said to them, do what you want with the movie, just never ask me for money. I'm 21 years old, I don't have anything to give you, but you do what you want with the movie. And so they sort of repackaged it, sold it, changed the title, put a terrible cover on it, but made money, and I made back, I don't know, probably 10 times what I put into the movie.
So how much was the budget for the first film you made?
The very first one was like 2 grand.
2 grand. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
carry on.
So really, really cheap. And yeah, so then money was coming in, and then I thought I'm going to do this again, but put a bit more effort into it. So the second one I did was Escape from Cannibal Farm, because I didn't even know, I didn't I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't a horror filmmaker. I didn't even know that that first film was going to go anywhere. I don't really refer to it really as my first film. It was an experiment really. But then I was like, oh, this is actually going to get distributed. Oh, so I want to be a horror filmmaker. I want to start making horror films. And yeah, so started making these movies. And basically after the next one, hang on, let me just turn that off. After the next one, um, the company who was using my movies as the sales agent and selling them, they said, we could just fund these for you. Like, you don't need to save up your budgets. We could give you more money. You can make better films, but we will own a majority percentage of it. But I thought at the time, like, I must have been about 23 at the time when this was happening. And I thought, wow, like, someone's going to give me money to make the films. I don't have to like work a day job and then blow everything. So for me, I was like, this is great,
Lovely, lovely. And then where we are now, 20 films in, how much has your budget risen now? And do you make the films you make at the moment, are they usually at the same budget level, or have you been steadily creeping up with how much you're spending?
Basically, I had a rule that was every time I get a film funded, the budget has to be bigger than before.
Mm.
Otherwise, I feel like if I'm doing that, then I'm always going upwards. So any film I do, I felt it would always be bigger than the last, in some way, because it would be bigger budget wise. But I mean, I have a lot of opinions and things about the budget. I mean, first of all, I won't say specifically the budget of like where the films have gotten to now, and I don't think any filmmaker should, just because when I pitch to people who are, I've already shot 4 feature films this year. When these people come to me to make these films, if they could find a podcast where I give them a figure, that ties me to the figure. I can't blag my way for a little bit more money. So one of the ways to go up, so I did in the early days, I would go around saying, I made my 2 grand first film and then my 5 grand second film. If they know you can do it for 5 grand, then they're going to give you 5 grand. So no, the budget did go up, not crazy amounts. I've never made anything in excess of 100 grand, which I do think is an important thing to let some filmmakers know. Like, filmmakers should manage their perceptions. I mean, as I say, I've just got so many opinions on budget things. I mean, a lot of people, when I say, my budgets have been under 100 grand, they'll just shrug off the film, oh, that's nothing. Well, hey, even 10 grand, even 20 grand is quite a lot of money, well, I suppose not for a film, but, for let's say, like, for a 22-year-old like I was, and you start to get these budgets that are in the tens of thousands. As I say, it's enough to make me a living. I don't know what everyone else's annual salary is, but if you're making 3 or 4 of these in a year, the money does start to add up. My weakness has always been I put way too much of the money, even now, into the film, because that's my passion. I actually, I'm not money driven at all. I don't care about money. I would like bigger budgets. Obviously, we all want bigger budgets. But the industry, so it was growing. The budgets were getting higher. The budgets got to a level that I felt was quite comfortable. We're starting to near the 100 grand threshold, and I thought, this is getting quite comfortable. Funnily enough, though, those were some of like my most turbulent films, because with more money comes more problems. There's bigger expectations. There's more that you need to deliver upon. So looking back over my 20 films, it is not the biggest budgeted ones that are my proudest films and my best films.
Mm.
So it really illustrates to me that budget is far less important than people make out. In fact, some of my films on the lower end of the budget are my favorite and turned out the best and look the most expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of my feeling on it. But after COVID, there was a dip. DVDs went out of the supermarkets here. Everything was on streaming. Streaming is not sustainable. It doesn't make enough money for anyone. And there was a period, maybe in about 2023, where it just seemed like, all the good funding had just dried up. And so I was faced with finally, I was going to have to go backwards and make a film for like my theory of going up the ladder was going to be destroyed, and I was going to have to go backwards. And I did seriously think, do I even want to do that? Like, what have I got to prove? I've already made a whole handful of cheap movies, and I felt like I had proven that, something for me, I always have wanted to prove that for not very much money, you can make a good film, that looks good. Money's no excuse. Like you can do it. And I think to an extent, I felt like I'd proven it. But anyway, I did decide I will take a step backwards, and I adjusted and adapted my way of filmmaking. I like to make films in 20 days. I had to make 3 films in a row in 11 days each on a project, which I would have just said to you, okay, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to end up with a load of crap, and films that you're not proud of. But I thought, this is where like a self-awareness started to come in. I realized, well, this is my day job now. There's artist me, and there's me that wants to make a living. And so you can either not progress, or you have to adapt and change to the times. And so I went and did a 3-movie shoot in 33 days. Had the best time, had a great time. The films aren't my best films. They never were going to be my best films, but they're fun. They were worthwhile for sustaining me for that year, so yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there's a few things to follow up on there. The budget thing, yeah, I've said before on here, on some tips videos done, about being very careful about who you reveal the budget to.
Yeah.
No sales agent's going to listen to this, he says, but they might do. I always say it's more for me, less with the people funding the films and more with the people buying the films.
Yeah.
What you can do is devalue your film by saying how much it's worth, because like you say, it can look like it's worth a lot more money, and if you put an amount on it, and obviously if you've made it for £2,000, you haven't really made it for £2,000 because you got all that stuff for free, so it's worth a lot more than that. So that's always a tough place. I usually, or back in the day, what I would say is, I spent about as much as you would on a new family car or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd kind of give them a bit of a taste, but not give them a figure.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting what you said about your budgets going up. And God, three films in a row sounds like hell to me. So you're making these films now. Are you editing? Are you doing everything else, or are you just write, produce, direct? What are you doing on them?
That's a good question, and that's also something that's very key to how I could make a living from doing my films. So in the beginning, I did everything on the film apart from the cinematography. I mean, yes, and I have a composer, and I have my cinematographer, and then of course the actors. So I am for the first like 5 or 6 movies, I was directing, writing, editing. I handle all of the post-production apart from composing the score.
So you're doing all the sound as well?
Everything,
Yeah.
all of it. And then on set, I was also the sound man.
Right.
But I mean, but this is the thing, like in the age of the technology we have, this was a nice little setup for me. I had my monitor around my neck. the boom pole in my hand, sometimes a focus wheel in my other hand, and I'm watching on the screen the shots, and I can hear the audio. It's amazing. I've got the microphone, it's my film. I'm not a lazy sound man. I've got the microphone right where it needs to be. And if it was a really crazy shot, I would have the focus wheel and I would pull focus too. I
Mm.
mean, and I love that. I love that. If I'm not doing that, I actually don't like it because it makes you feel like you're making the movie, like you're
Mm.
actually making the movie. When I was at film school, we had a project which was to do a feature film, and the year group had to nominate a director to direct it. And I showed off my short films, and I got nominated to be the director. And they wanted it all done with me sat, at Video Village.
Mm.
And, because all the other film students, they were my crew. So there's like 20 people. And so I'm just sat in a completely different room most of the time, actually, to the action. That is my worst nightmare of filmmaking, just because, for better or worse, I have come up through doing every little detail myself because I had to.
Mm.
And people have told me this whole journey, from way back when I was 14, you can't do it all yourself. You cannot do it all yourself. You have to have this, and that means money, money, money. Well, I've done everything myself almost a bunch of times, and it can be done.
Mm.
It can 100 in this day and age, it can 100% be done. And so anyway, my most recent films, I am now my cinematographer as well. It got to a point where my cinematographer was not delivering what I wanted, and it was taking too long. And so I sort of started to learn cinematography myself. So in the middle of my film, in the middle of my films, it's like the cinematography takes a nosedive because I've had to now
You're
start
learning, yeah.
cinematography. But now the cinematography is far superior to
Mm.
how it was before because I've just learned. I mean, filmmaking is all learning, and over the last 10 years, it's been learning with other people's money.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of sort of judgment from filmmakers of, budget levels and, oh, you do everything yourself. That's ridiculous.
Mm.
I'm just learning all of the skills.
So yeah, so I obviously I've been there, I've done that where I've done everything, and I still do a lot of post production, not everything, because I'm terrible at grading, and I did just sound on one film and it nearly killed me.
Yep.
So I guess mine isn't judgment, mine's more. And maybe this is because I'm slightly older. I would worry about my energy levels and that I wouldn't be able to. Because the other thing people maybe don't appreciate is when you finish the film, the actual post-production process is kind of the hard part. The shoot is the fun bit.
Yep.
Post-production is kind of like this long extended thing where you're trying to make it all work. So I don't know if I'd have the stamina and the focus to do everything. I mean, you saying you're not still doing sound and camera though, presumably. You've got a sound man now.
No, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so now my setup is I always will have a sound man.
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually go as far as to say, because I actually know quite a lot of filmmakers who will just do the sound themselves.
Mm.
For me, that's just the bottom line is like we all know what a good film looks like and sounds like, and the quality must be there.
Mm.
And you can't kid yourself and look at your movie and go, oh, that sounds great when it doesn't. So
Yeah.
if you're a filmmaker out there, I know filmmakers who do camera and sound. No, no, no. You absolutely must have a sound man. The boom's got to be in there, otherwise you will not get the sound quality that you need. And I've had companies that hire me throughout the years. They will often say that one of the things they like about my films is that the sound quality is always so high.
Mm.
And I mean, it's not always, but compared to
Yeah.
the indie level, the sound quality is there. And I will say that's probably what I spend a majority of my year doing is
Mm.
sound design.
Yeah.
I mean, so my current setup has been Go out and shoot the film, as you say. That's the fun part. It absolutely is. If you can't find a way to enjoy that, then maybe just maybe be a producer or something. Like if you don't, if for me that is my happy place, and I need it like an addiction. If I go too long, I need that feeling of being back on set.
Yeah.
With fake blood everywhere
I
and
call
running
it
around.
with my wife, who's my producer.
Mhm.
I get the fidgets. I mean, not doing them at the same pace as you. I do like one every couple of years.
Mhm.
But if I start to get those fidgets, I'm like, I've got to do one soon. Do you know what I mean? I have to do
Yeah,
it. So I know exactly what that feels like.
yeah, yeah. And so I have a sound man. I have me doing the camera and the directing, which I love, And then
Mm,
I've in recent years started doing cinematography for other people, just so I can go and be just the cinematographer, which is fun. It's a breeze, to because usually I'm used to doing everything.
yeah.
Um, but I have a runner. All of my cast, they know the deal.
Mm,
Everyone's, it's all hands on deck.
mm,
Everyone's helping. I've never once felt like I'm one person running around. No, no, there's a whole team of us always doing all sorts of stuff.
yeah.
And then sometimes the makeup artist, for the more intense like gore and stuff like that. Um, when it comes to post, I have an editor. So actually, while we're on set, the editor is already there editing what we're doing, and I would say to the editor, just get it cut. Wide shot, close up when he speaks, close up when she speaks. Get me the cut. Well, then that cut then probably takes me like could be a week or 2 weeks because I've got a cut, and then I just go in and I polish it. And then the long part is the sound design, probably about another 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm,
But I'd say the sound design takes me double the length of time of editing, like doing the polish on the edit. And then the color grade, maximum a week. So it is the sound design is the part that takes the most. But luckily for me, I actually really love sound designing, and
mm,
somehow, even a bad shot, even a kind of rough out of focus looking shot, when you've gone in and you've done all the sound, suddenly the shot's nice.
mm.
Like sound affects so much the visual. And so that's why I get these compliments from these companies saying, wow, the sound, it really complements your movies, is quite unlike what we get from most people of this level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sound is really important, and it's one of the things that people will not wear bad sound. If they're watching a film and it's got bad sound, they can't hear what people are saying, or if it's got dead sound when there's just nothing apart from dialogue, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
agonizing. It stretches all your scenes, it just makes
yeah,
everything boring. And the
yeah,
other thing is for filmmakers, you've got to be careful because a lot of streaming platforms are designed to notice drop-offs in sound, and your film won't pass the QC because the system will go, hang on a minute, there's no sound there. There should always be something
yeah,
happening on screen. So yeah, sound is really important, and having that person do that assembly edit for you, I've had that before, really so helpful, especially when you're shooting, because you can go, oh, blimey, I've missed a whole, I've missed this one shot, and you can do it while you're still making your film.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you're making these films now. You're still going with them. What do you think? What are some of the mistakes you see other filmmakers make? I mean, we've talked about sound. What do you think filmmakers out there are getting wrong?
That's a good question. And to be honest, like I I mean, I I try not to pay attention to what other indie filmmakers are doing. I think I like to just be in my bubble in a
Mm,
way. I have my opinion of what I think makes a good movie, and there are people out there making films on a much higher budget than my films, and I will watch them, and I'm just bored. Uh, I don't understand why they even went to the effort of making the movie, and I think my movies, they have a sort of like a handmade quality, but I put a level of detail into everything I do. I put a level of detail into, and I think 10 years from now, that detail will still be there.
Mm.
You know, so I think it's really important to craft them for the art of crafting them. So my main mistakes I think I see other people doing, I mean, I don't know where to honestly begin. But shooting the films too fast with too little care, you know, can you shoot a film in 6 days and it be good? No, you just can't. You know, that is just taking the money and just rushing something. 6 days. I mean, I just don't understand. You know, there was someone who approached me a while ago. They were asking me if I wanted to come and direct a movie for them. They were going to be producing it for the first time. I said, "What's your budget?" They told me the budget. It wasn't too bad.
Mm.
And then they told me it's going to be done in 6 days and blah, blah, blah. And I just wondered, why do you even want to get into this world of indie filmmaking if you're going to shoot the thing in? So I said to them, well, your first mistake is you're going to try and shoot a whole film in 6 days.
Mm.
And I understand it because from a producer point of view, like I said about these films where I had to shoot three in 33 days, 11 days each. Well, I would not choose to make a film in 11 days, but I had to be so very specific at that time. And it was all going to be natural daylight. It was all going to be on locations. There was going to be the need for minimal lighting and like costume stuff. And in fact, the 11th day of each film was just reserved for, there was no actors. It was just for all the more intricate
Mm.
special effects related shots. So it was really like a 10-day shoot with a 1 day of pickups. And with the experience of about 15 or 16 features behind me, I felt I could move at 100 miles an hour, and I do a lot of the jobs myself. And I, you know, in that very unique circumstance, I felt I
Mm.
could do it. And still, the films are not, you know, I knew what they were going to be. They're not to the level I wanted them to be. I did them because it's my day job.
Yeah.
And sometimes paying my bills is actually what drives me through. But that's not ideal. You want to be only really making stuff really for the art of it. But I find myself now almost 10 years in, oh, this is my day job. You know, it cannot always be the art. So, I mean, maybe we'll get to this later, but I've actually separated my company, my brand, so that I've got one which is now like my day job and one which is now my art projects, you know, like
Mm.
my passion pieces.
Mm.
But yeah, going back to mistakes, why would you choose to make it in 6 days? Like cut some of your cast or cut something and make the the time frame longer. Because I bet you this film had a crew of about 15 people. God, cut some of your crew members and
Mhm.
make it a 15-day shoot. So cut your crew members. That's a really good one. Every film I've gone and DP'd on, and I'm just sort of a guest on someone else's set. And it's obviously very different for me because there's all these people around, and I'm so used to doing it with such a skeleton crew. These people are dead weight every time. They are absolutely dead weight. They're just they don't know what they're doing because you're paying them so little that they're not needed. Like if you're someone like me and some of the other filmmaker friends of mine who will just run around like mad and just make sure it all gets done, but you know it's not altogether that hard. You go out to your choose an amazing location that'll do a lot of good stuff for you. Figure out how you're going to light it. So then when you get there, really what you're doing, you're rehearsing the scene with the actors, and then you're setting up the lights. You know, you might set up two or three lights. You know, I mean, that's another mistake people make. You're not really going to ever need more than two or three lights. Um, Everything just starts to look, you know, I
Not in a
hate
horror film, anyway.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I hate seeing films and everything's just, you know, it
Mm.
just looks like they've got the house lights on.
Mm.
That's not cinematography, that's not lighting. I don't know what film they've ever been inspired by where just every light in the house was on, but that seems to be all I ever see in indie films now. You know, black it out, get your one or two directional lights, make it look like a movie because that's what we're all trying to do. And so yeah, I mean, honestly, regardless of crew size and of budget, if you can just understand these basics, I think you can get better results. And yeah, and so one thing that I've taken notice of in recent years, and one thing I recommend to all filmmakers, just go and look at the films that made you fall in love with filmmaking. Look at them, look how they're shot, look how the stories are told, and now you try and repeat that. Because I've got friends who claim they love all the same stuff as me, Fulci, Argento, and gorgeous visual films, and then you get on their sets, it looks nothing like Argento and Fulci. So I am on my phone, I've got a folder. Anytime I see anything that I like in a film, like a great shot or a great bit of lighting that's not occurred to me, I film it, and then they're all in a folder. And then I'll even arrive on set with, if it's not in my head, which really it is, but if it's not, I arrive on set, I've got all the printouts of all the frames that have inspired me. And I look at the frame and I look at my camera, and you can see, like, oh, that looks quite different. I look like I'm making a piece of crap. Look at this. Look how good Hellraiser looked. And so you look and you go, well, that frame, has much more sort of, the room's almost pitch black, but there's this great slither of backlight, and oh, there's smoke, I better get the smoke machine out, and oh, there's blue gels on the lights. So now you can start to make your film look like a film. So use films to make your film look like a film. But you'd just be amazed, or I'm even amazed at myself sometimes. I go and watch like an old favorite, and I'm like, God, I need to not forget all these great techniques. That's what we're doing this for.